they have a completely different way of looking at things. And, you know, they're not really interested in the infrastructure itself, but how they can use it. Now, what's really interesting is that when you look at an analysis of that Generation C, I think it's 7th on the list of what they use their mobile device for, or mobile phone for, is talking. You know, they simply don't use it. It's texting, it's email, it's surfing the web, it's downloading music, it's downloading movies. And so there is this generational change. I was at a workshop the other day and just looking at generational change, and I felt like use-by dates burning through on my forehead. It really is changing. At this year's Consumer Electronics Show in January, the difference was immense. Suddenly, everyone was talking about the connected home, the Internet of Things, the fact that last June we changed over Internet protocols because we ran out of web addresses, and we needed not billions of web addresses, we now need trillions of web addresses. Because almost everything we use is going to have an address, an IP address. So your fridge, by 2015, you'll have the average Australian will have 6 devices that are connectable to the internet. And on top of that, we're starting to see some real change under this, the fact that there are smart TVs. I mean, one of the things that Samsung, a representative of Samsung, said to me at last Wednesday's launch of their television range, when people come into Harvey Norman or Dick Smith or any of the retailers to buy a television, we've talked about the size of the television or how many pixels it has, what's the resolution, a whole variety of things about the television itself and its performance. After June, people are going to come in and negotiate how much cloud storage they get with their television. I mean, that's a completely, it's a paradigm shift in terms of the way people look at technology. So, I think the biggest problem, sorry, how does that relate to your question? The biggest problem is that politicians don't understand this. So, let's, if we could move them out of it, it would be wonderful. But it is about the technology that is down the track in the next 5 to 10 years. The technology that we're going to be exposed to is so different. And we're going to see technologies drop off the branch. A month ago, Intel announced that it would stop producing motherboards for desktop computers at the end of this year, that everything is going mobile, and that's the direction that company is going in. So they're abandoning traditional computers and saying we're looking at mobile devices as the future of this technology. Now, that's a huge shift, and this exponential rate of change in the technology. And when you think about it, if you've got a current smartphone with a quad-core processor, it's got more computing power than the average desktop had in people's homes 3 years ago. And I can put it in my back pocket. And the desktop I had at home didn't have a camera in it, didn't have GPS, had no idea where in the world it was. This device is incredible in terms of its power. And then I'm going to keep going and going. Google's about...
I know, that's the key. It's phenomenal capacity, and I was interested, I'm not sure which the biggest... actually, I think you might, when you were talking about vision, the vision. It's understanding in the way, because I'm speaking tomorrow morning at breakfast, and I was thinking on the weekend of what I was going to talk about, and one of the things that I was going to use is the analogy that you've used about the Snowy River scheme. In terms of that infrastructure, and you think about what it was designed to do and the capacity, the future capacity that it was looking to create. And the NBN is about creating capacity, the bandwidth, the arterial road. We don't know where that needs to end.
Or what's going to drive on
No,
it.
that's right. We just know it needs to be a big pipe.
Yeah.
We don't know what on earth is going to be on it.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Can you pass your microphone forward? Thank you.
I just Jeff Hayden is my name, and I'm talking today and again tomorrow, so I'm sorry if everybody got sick of me, but it just strikes me when you say exactly what you just said there. There's the idea that we would go and ask somebody who builds roads about why that road is going to be used for some new business model in the future is daft. We would never ask somebody who designed bitumen to teach us about business models for couriers and transport on delivery systems. We should never ask people who build telecommunications networks about the applications that they will be used for in the future, because their job is to build the sucker.
Yeah.
And that's all. The interesting business models are in every other industry. So go look for the innovation in every other industry. Don't look for it in the telecoms industry. It's got a tough enough job building an incredibly complicated thing. And if you ask anybody in it what they're doing, they'll talk to you till you're blue in the face about bandwidth.
Yeah.
Because that's what that job is. It just isn't that you shouldn't be asking about.
No, it's a good point. Questions? Oh, I'm almost finished. Can I ask a question of Terry? A couple of years ago, I was emceeing an event with an engineer from Bell Labs who held the patent for optic fibre. He's quite a wealthy man. But he made the point that at that stage, we don't know what the top-out bandwidth is for fibre. That really it hasn't been determined that you could, by changing the switches at either end, at the exchange and at the home or business, you could just have increasing speed. And he drew the analogy, your single optic fibre, but he drew the analogy that if you had two optic fibre channels and you aggregated all the people in the world into two cities, that all the information exchange could be easily accommodated in those two hair size fibre. Is that right?
I think the bandwidth in fibre is they're starting to get close to a theoretical limit.
You're right.
But all the information that is there now, yes. All the information is going to be in 10 years' time, I'd say no.
Right.
The rate at which information is growing exponentially.
So at the moment, we've got multiples of gigabits a second. So terabits?
At the moment, the hero experiments, we call them, that are done in places like Bell Labs are running at several terabits per second down in optical fibre.
Right.
So many terabits. So theoretical limits up around the hundreds of terabits.
Sorry, I just had to get an answer to the question. I don't often get access to terabits. So thank you very much, panel. Is there anything that you'd like to say to close on?
Actually, I did have a question for Terry whilst he was here, because he ducked out during my presentation.
Thanks, Ben.
And it sort of relates to capacity. I just wanted, because my jaw dropped when I heard this as well. I'm used to interactive audio-visual communications at high definition. I think that's fantastic. I love Blu-ray. Can you just comment on what's coming?
What's coming is quite actually scary. I think I mentioned before when I did the work in the hospital for Katoomba, we were using standard definition digital video, and at the time, this was 10 years ago, on a studio monitor so they could get really good quality, and we thought, gee, that was a really good picture, very good quality. A couple of years ago, we resurrected that technology for an experiment in the lab, and I suddenly said, oh dear, compared to what we've actually got now with high-def TV on my set-top box at home, it's good, but it's not quite so good. What's coming next is in the labs now there's ultra-high def and there's ultra-high def, which is sort of 16 times better. So we're seeing that it's ever increasing. I'm spoiling my talk tomorrow, but we estimate that the bandwidth of this funny little organ there, which has got 180 million receptors in it, rods and cones, the equivalent bandwidth, if you're talking in bits per second, is about 1 terabit per second. So that's this bandwidth you've got there. So if you compare, when you see a little video on there, or watching a travelogue on TV at home to actually going there. Now, what would you rather do? Sit at home and watch the travelogue of the elephants coming across the plain in Africa or going there? We've got a long way to go. But ultra-high def is coming. The next generation is being tried in the labs. So what's coming is going to blow our minds off. I think the other one I love is, we've got stereo. Got my first stereo player at home and CD and all that. The latest things they're playing with for surround sound are 22 channels of audio. And so think of what that sort of presence can get you when you're going to the movies if there's 22 channels surrounding you. So,
Okay, so it's drink o'clock. You're allowed to go and have a drink. Thank you very much, panel. I think you've been terrific. You've answered some tough questions. And thank you for staying. See you tomorrow.